Welcome to the Grebner Show. This is Scott Kerker along with Metamora head coach Jared Grebner. Coach, nice to get back on the winning track again, wasn't it?
It's always good when you get a W, especially senior night on Malone Field. You know, it's always nice to get that win.
Yeah, it was and a beautiful night too. Great night for football. A little humid, but for the most part, a pretty nice night. We've played much hotter under much hotter conditions than Friday night, so nice night for a home football game at Metamora.
You know, those nice nights bring out nice crowds as well, and you know, when you have that fan support and community support, you know, it makes it even better.
Yeah, you played a very tough, hard-hitting, hard-nosed team in La Salle, Peru. They came out and they kind of smacked you in the face a little bit.
And that's always expected of them. They're always a tough physical team. You know, they'll come up on run support. Their safeties fill fast. Their linebackers fly around. And so that's always something that we expect out of them.
They played in that old NCIC with Geneseo and Rochelle and Sterling. There were some tough, hard-nosed football teams. Those schools were known for that exact thing, and nothing's really changed in La Salle, Peru.
No, and they've been physical. You know, they're well coached, and it's something that, you know, when we got them on the schedule, we know that we would have to try and match their intensity and their physicality.
I think that was the big thing, is matching their physicality. The thing that I was impressed with, you know, talking a little bit about the game, was you held them on their first possession. You kicked off, held them, and then we had a misfortune. When you punt and it's an odd punt, it kind of came back a little bit. Those are always tough for your defender, your guy on your team, that those balls don't come back and hit them. It's always really tough.
Yeah. You know, we start the game like we want. We get off the field. We had great field position, pinning them deep. You know, Drew Hansen put it in the end zone for us right off the bat. Forced a punt right there. Unfortunately, it went off our guy's heel when it landed as he was blocking. And so, you know, you think we're going to get the ball at really good field position, and all of a sudden defense has to go back out on the field again. But they responded real well, just like we knew they could. And, you know, they were able to get another stop right after that.
So that was nice, and you got the ball. I believe you got it on about your own 25-yard line, and you came right out of the chutes with a pass to Noah Simmons.
Yes.
And I think that picked up about 42 or 43 yards.
And it was a nice snag that he had. You know, Caden delivered a ball, and it was a little bit high, and he just snatched that out of the air. Noah's done that all year long. You know, if it's somewhere in the vicinity where he can get his hands on it, he always catches them. And then he was able to make a big play out of that, and you know, we were able to capitalize and take that momentum down and get a score there.
It was nice. What I thought was really nice about it too is, on that particular play, you had some great downfield blocking by your wide receivers. And Metamora is starting to get a little reputation over the few years that their receivers have become very good blockers.
You know, that's one thing that we always preach. Coach Simmons always preaches that as well. You know, being a wide receiver, you know, you got to be able to catch the ball, but there's a lot more to it with the blocking, the perimeter blocking, you know, using bubbles and screens and stuff like that a little bit more. So they all have to be willing blockers as well as pass catchers as well.
I think Chris Miles once said that it's the wide receiver it should be RB, a wide blocker.
Yeah.
But anyway, you guys went right down the field, scored, got the 2-point conversion, went up 8-0. And then you were only able to muster one other touchdown. We'll get back to the defense in a minute. But the other thing that I thought was late in the second quarter, you got the ball, you started a drive, then you got kind of hit with some penalties. And at one point, I believe it was 2nd and 21. And I thought your kids did an outstanding job of responding and not only getting the first down, but you guys were able to score with about 2.5 minutes to go in the first half.
And that drive just felt like it lasted forever, in part because of, you know, our own doing with the penalties and things of that nature. But, you know, we'd get a first down, but then we'd get a penalty. We'd get a big gain, we'd get a penalty that would bring it back. And so, you know, when it's 2nd and 20, like you said, they just kept chipping away and just kept putting ourselves in position where we could make it fourth and manageable or make it third and manageable. And, they responded, and that was something that you like to see out of our guys.
I thought Caden Hartnett, your quarterback, did an outstanding job. When you needed 2, 3, 4 yards, he got it for you. And sometimes it was second and third efforts that got him that first down. On that drive, I think there were two distinct plays that I remember that he was able to, just because, I think it had a little bit to do with that senior in knowing that, team kind of needs me here. I need to get another couple yards to get a first. And he got it for you.
I mean, he's a competitor, just like all the other kids. And he's just kind of got these hips that kind of wiggle through there. Sometimes he almost gives you like a dead leg that lets people slide off of him, and he has really good vision. And it wasn't just him. He had, on some of those, Cam Davis lead blocking for him that would pick up linebackers, and those guys up front as a unit, from the offensive linemen to the tight ends and wings. They did a great job when we needed them most to pick up those tough yards.
You got the touchdown, like I said, late in the first half. Went into the halftime locker room up 16-0, and that was it for the scoring for you guys. And you had some chances, and both times you kicked off from their side of the field. And I think this year we've scored 4 touchdowns, and we've kicked off to start the game both times. The opening kickoff in both games were the only time we've kicked off on our side of the field.
Yeah. You don't see that very often.
No.
Especially the 30-yard penalty that we're kicking off from the opponent's 30. It's something you don't see all the time, but that's what makes sports great. Is it's always something that is going to pop up that you didn't really expect.
Yeah, that was I've come to realize that when you're dealing with 17 and 18-year-old kids, expect the unexpected, because something weird is going to happen.
Yes.
And it has. They'll never disappoint in that aspect.
That's right.
But I thought your defense the first half was unbelievable. I believe at halftime we had them for 0 yards of offense. They had no passing yards. They had no rushing yards. Now, they had some positive gains, but they had most of that negated by some loss of yardage on certain downs.
And one of that was the big one where on their punt they had kind of that bubbled snap, and Gavin O'Loughlin was able to tackle him, and I think that was about a 20-yard loss for them off the bat. Yeah. The unfortunate part was we weren't able to capitalize on that field position, but part of that was, like you mentioned, was some tackle for losses and stuff like that, and that punt counted against their rushes.
Yeah.
So that put them behind the 8 balls for statistics-wise.
They were able to put together one drive in the second half, and sometimes that just happens where things just kind of fall together for teams, and they're able to put together a drive. But what impressed me was that was it. Once they got their drive together, I don't think they had another first down the rest of the game.
And that was one thing that we kind of expected, as far as their adjustments that they could possibly make based on what we were doing. And on that series, they happened to come out and do that. We took a timeout at that point in the game to make some quick adjustments, trying to do that on the fly. We were unable to actually stop them at that point. After the timeout, they had some momentum going, but after that, when the kids all got settled in on some of the adjustments that we made, they were able to stop them.
I thought the one guy that just stood out for me was Drew Hansen. Boy, every time they tried to get wide, he stopped it. He never let them get to his outside shoulder. There was one play down on the goal line. I thought for sure he had the safety, but they gave him I think the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is he had a couple of just ginormous punts.
Drew played a phenomenal game. We kind of put him in a position to kind of make plays, and he didn't disappoint, that's for sure. He had a good first punt of the game, and then his second punt, that kind of was a backbreaker, really, when they're going to get the ball back down 16-8, and he pins him down on the 3 yard line. And he was actually really good about it. He didn't panic or anything like that. He caught the snap. They weren't rushing anybody, and so he just held the ball, and just let more time tick off the clock. And then all of a sudden, he puts one perfectly down there and pins him deep.
You know, when he was sitting there waiting for his coverage to get downfield, he looked off to his right, and there was nobody out there. I mean, I thought for a second he was going to take off running.
We actually joked around with him and asked what was going through his mind, and he said, I knew I wasn't going to run it because it was 4th down and like 20 or whatever. I mean, he said it was just too long of a yardage for me to go get something like that. But, you know, he pins them deep, and then they try and run a sweep, and Marshall Vasquez made a great play, tripping their runner-up. And so, you know, pin them deep, we get a nice tackle for a loss, and that just kind of gave everybody the confidence that we needed to close the game out.
Yeah, it was a nice team win. I thought your kids, you know, you need a good game like that where it's a real Donnybrook. I think Pat Ryan used to say a slobber knocker.
Yep.
and it definitely was. I mean, they hit you from the get-go. There was, I think it was Broderick Schroers had a kickoff return?
Yes.
That he brought up to about the 40-yard line, 45-yard line, right in front of your bench. Man, it was right at the 40. And man, at the end, the kid had an angle on him. But it was a great return. But he paid for it. He got depleted.
You know, but he's not afraid to stick his nose in there. You know, Broderick got us great field position, was able to read his blocks, use his speed, get to the sideline. You know, he took a big hit, but just like Broderick always does, you know, he gets right back up and gets right back in there and does what he can for the team.
You know, a lot of people say, well, Metamora should have probably beat them by more. But the way I look at it, you know, the beginning of the season, a win's a win. You're not out there for style points. Style points come later in the year and into the playoffs. And I think, you know, there's some things you probably need to work at. And as a coach, you're probably thinking, great, you know, I just want to win. We needed a win. You got the win. And now you can go back and you know, make those adjustments. What you do have is, you know, that you're going to be going into next week's game against your arch rival with a 1-1 record. They're coming in at 0-2.
Mm-hmm. You know, going back to the wins, you know, it's always nice to get a win and still know that, hey, we haven't quite played our best. You know, we played good at times, but there's also times that we can do a little bit better and clean up on and everything like that. So to come out with the win and have those teachable moments is still wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, when you look at your program right now, you've got a freshman team that's 1-1, and you've got a JV sophomore team that's 1-0, and both of them this past week have had great wins. The freshmen shut out LaSalle Peru. They had a pretty solid team, and you beat them 14-0. Your freshman team looks like they're going to be a pretty decent group of kids.
There's a lot of talent within that team. You know, just watching them grow, the thing that's impressed me most is I thought they've been a pretty physical ball club. You know, there was actually some pretty good hits that took place in that freshman game, and you know, they just kind of gelled together as a unit that night.
Yeah, they played awfully well. But, and you look at your sophomore JV team on Monday night. Well, when they played Peoria Central, and they came out, and I think it was their very first play from scrimmage. They threw about a 65-yard bomb to go up 6-0. Then they get the ball back, and they go same exact play again to the same kid, about a 70-yard bomb, to go up 12-0. And then I believe it was Evan Kyle.
Yes.
Broke off about a 65-yard run for a touchdown. He's kind of come out of nowhere. I was really impressed with his game on Monday.
You know, he ran the ball hard. He was a tight end last year for us as a freshman, and you know, he came up in the summertime and asked, "Hey, can I try running back?" And yeah, let's try you there. It was something that he wanted to do, and he has kind of deceptive speed.
Yes.
He's a strong physical kid. Has done a tremendous job for us. The thing that we like to see the most on that JV game that you're talking about is, you know, it's 14-0, or it was actually 12-0 because they didn't get their 2-point conversions, but it's 12-0 like that. You know,
Yeah,
it's 2 plays, and you're thinking, oh man. And then we go down and we respond, put together a nice drive, and then 3 plays later, we had a miscommunication, and they caught a slant, and they took that one to the house, and so didn't get the 2-point conversion again, so all of a sudden it's 18-6, and you're thinking, okay, let's see how we're going to respond. And we reeled off a lot of points and didn't allow anything until that very last minute of the game. And so we were really happy how they responded, and how they kept competing, and all their hard work paid off that night.
I do the chains, and it was midway through the second quarter, and it was still 18-6, I believe. Then it was 18-12. I think you guys scored a touchdown right at the end of the first quarter, and the second quarter was scoreless. But you just kept running Kyle into the middle and getting him and just pounding on that central defensive line. And with about 3 minutes to go in the first half, there was a short lightning break.
Yes.
And the Thorguard didn't go off, but the referee saw the lightning, so they sent everybody in. But they didn't last long. They came out and said, no, let's bring him back out and play. They had 2 players behind their bench throwing up. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is the beginning of the end. Because that was just kind of, it was an old Kurt Ryan move where you just pound him and pound him and pound him, and eventually they just wore down. Mm-hmm. They really wore down. And you went on, I believe, a 42-12 run. And I mean, it ended up being 48-24 at the end of the game. Just a really impressive win for your sophomores.
Yeah, Coach Kieswetter, Coach Otto, Coach Simmons, and all the coaches, they did a phenomenal job preparing them for that night, and all their hard work, like we said before, paid off, and they got that first W. Yeah,
it was. I thought your offensive line, that underclass offensive line, did a fantastic job of just pounding and pounding. And boy, that third quarter, you just, it helps when you get, I think, what was it, 4 onside kicks?
Yeah, I mean, and Tommy Sopko, he came out and got those onside kicks. They got I think they recovered the first one, and then he had like 3 in a row. It was one of those where, you should go buy a lottery ticket afterwards or something like that. Another thing that sticks out about that game was I thought our defense responded really well. There wasn't a lot of success on their part running the ball. I thought some of our linebackers played really well, like Wes McNeil, Brendan Batters. Our safeties filled really well with Shea Seals and Brad Chalk, and those safeties are an integral part of the run game and just for run support, and they tackled in the open field real well. I mean, there's countless others, but I thought as a unit they played real well, and once they settled down and they all were able to come together and keep them at bay.
Yeah, I thought that was a great team win for your sophomore team. And now it's on to Washington. And you got a Washington team that regardless of their record right now, they're 0-2. They've played some pretty good competition, but you're going to get their very, very best effort this coming Friday.
Oh, absolutely. They've played 2 really good teams. Highland is a really good team. Kankakee is a really good team. And so they've been tested, that's for sure. They've seen some really good athletes out on the field. They've seen some good defenses. And so they'll be frothing at the mouth, to try and take that out on, us and their arch rivals, and, playing on their home field. They have a lot of pride. Coach Crouch is a good coach. His whole coaching staff will do a good job. And, we'll have to come out and be ready to play. In rivalry games like that, you never know what's going to happen or anything like that, but they'll be ready, and we're going to have a good week of practice, and we'll be ready also, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
Is it any more difficult the week you're getting ready to play Washington to get the kids motivated than it is any other week?
No, it's not difficult to get them motivated at all. We're opening up conference play with them, which is a little bit different than years past. We'd always have them at the tail end of the season, but we're opening up the conference. The kids want to work hard. They want to get that first conference win. They want to beat their arch rivals. And so there's a lot that goes into it. But they know that they're going to have to earn every single thing that they get because, Washington, they're always going to be ready as well.
Well, Coach, good luck this coming Friday. We'll let you get going here, but congratulations on the big win, and we'll see you Friday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.